Welcome to another episode of Limitless. Tonight we're talking about a very interesting topic, something that a friend of mine mentioned over the weekend, and we got into a discussion, and then he said, please do a talk on it. And I call this one the achievement molecule. The achievement molecule. It's this talk tonight is really going to be how do we harness, and I'm going to say this word very specifically, how do we harness real dopamine to master our goals? How do we harness real dopamine to master our goals? So why do I say the word real dopamine? Well, let's take a couple of steps back. I want you to think about the last time you did a dead scroll on social media, or you sat down with a whole bag of chips. Well, it's chips, and you ate a whole bag of chips, scrolling YouTube channels or TikTok or whatever the case may be, and or playing a game, a cell phone game or online game of some sort, PlayStation game. And what you were looking for was that, let's call it that hit of pleasure. Most people believe that hit of pleasure is dopamine. That's not completely true. That's not the whole truth. We somehow have come to believe that that is dopamine. That's a fake form of dopamine. So tonight I'm just going to really just unpack it a little bit, explain to you guys what real dopamine is. Because if you are pushing to get the fake dopamine, it is actually going to hold you back from achieving your goals. If you understand how dopamine works, it will absolutely project you much closer and faster towards achieving real goals in this life. I'm going to make this very simple and straightforward and explain what real dopamine is in literally two sentences. So, dopamine is not the pleasure reward we thought it was. Dopamine is the wanting craving. Dopamine is not what you get once you've hit the high. Dopamine is what your body generates on the journey towards. Dopamine is the desire to do something, not the satisfaction you get once you've done it. If you grasp that difference and you listen to the rest of the talk, your life is completely going to be changed. So I'm going to repeat this again. Dopamine is not about the pleasure of having. It's about the motivation of wanting. It's the molecule of pursuit. I love that statement that just came out. I think that's probably the best description I've ever come up with. It's the molecule of pursuit. It's not having, it's the chasing molecule. It's the desire. It's the wanting that we crave. That's what real dopamine actually generates. The reason this is important because a lot of people believe that dopamine is about that feeling of enjoyment, the liking of achievement. That's what opiate does. Dopamine creates a wanting, a desire. There's a massive difference between the two. Um, Fake dopamine is when we go through some kind of a process where there's a spike where we think I almost want to call it the cheap or the instant fix, where without real effort there's a spike of happiness, and a lot of people think that's dopamine. So one of the greatest areas is social media, food or video games. These create a sense of fulfillment. But here's the thing: what most people don't grasp. If you take social media or you take online games or whatever, you go through that curve where you're wanting something, but you're not really putting in any effort or energy. I mean, to flip through things, to sit and play a game, there's no energy, there's no commitment, there's no dedication involved, and yet you get some form of happiness or fulfillment at the end. What that actually does, it actually has a numbing effect on your body's capability to produce natural dopamine because your body's being fooled in a fake form of fulfillment instead of the actual effort and work being put in to achieve something, which in essence actually really creates the dopamine. So that's why one of the reasons we teach our children not to spend too much time playing games on their phones or too much time on social media is because of that fake form of I've done something, I'm happy now, I got a like on this, I've achieved that level. That's purely fake because again, I need to make you guys understand there's no energy or effort really being put in, and yet there's some kind of a level of fulfillment. That's the false form of dopamine. It's an opiate, it's a happiness chemical, but it's not dopamine. It doesn't make us want to achieve goals in life. It creates a fake level of achievement in our brain, and it creates a fake form of satisfaction of achievement. Real dopamine is that's our achievement. Real dopamine is what you that kick that you get for wanting to build something, to construct something, to create something, to achieve something. Real dopamine is that kick you get from a massive, beautiful life goal you want to achieve, climb Mount Everest, get a degree, build a house, and actually going through that process of achievement. So here's a little bit of a secret about dopamine. Dopamine gets produced whilst we are actively doing something that is going to give us a positive result. It's in the process of doing that dopamine kicks in. So if you decide you're going to climb Mount Everest, from the moment you decide, when you then go and purchase your equipment, when you go on practice hikes, when you upgrade your fitness, all the steps you take towards climbing Mount Everest, all those steps, the effort you're putting in to get to the final achievement, that's the dopamine producer. When you decide to start a business, trying to think about the outcome or the result of the business, thinking about getting rich one day from the business does not produce dopamine. Thinking about or daydreaming about getting rich one day produces a fake form of dopamine because your brain, subconscious brain, doesn't differentiate between you actually achieving that or not. So when you daydream about getting rich one day, something in your brain says, well, I'm feeling that I've achieved this because I'm daydreaming it, and the subconscious mind experiences it as real. So it tells you you've achieved it, you've got no reason to do it. So what you're doing is you're suppressing the dopamine production. So how do we really stimulate dopamine production? If your dream is to get rich and start your own business, it's all the steps you're going to take and the activity of doing those steps that produces dopamine. And we get addicted to that. But you've got to break it down simplistic. I'll give you an example. If you say, I want to go clean out my garage, saying that you want to go clean out your garage is not going to produce dopamine. It's going to produce the happiness opioid at the end once you've done it. Dopamine is going to produce me. So I'm going to open the garage door. Well, I'm going to walk to the garage. I'm going to open the door. I'm going to unpack some of the things in the shelf. I'm going to carry it outside. I'm going to sort it into groups. I'm going to throw some of the things away, and I'm going to pack back what needs to go back. Those individual steps, as you do them, your brain goes, this is the journey I'm on towards a magnificent outcome. And it's during that journey that your brain starts producing dopamine. Now there's a level of, call it, excitement that builds up in us that we are on the journey of achieving something magnificent. And we know there's going to be satisfaction at the end of it. We know there's going to be reward, but we're not celebrating, yes, yet our focus is on what we are doing at the moment. I'll take a couple of steps back. I remember when I was diagnosed with my brain growth. So I've got a growth deep in my brain, and it pushes against two parts of my brain. The one is creates a false form of Parkinson's, and the other part it pushes against the gland that's responsible for dopamine. So I got to a point in my life where I had virtually no dopamine in my system, and I knew it because the signs were there. I didn't want to get out of bed. I had no goals, no driving force to achieve anything in life. Nothing mattered. I just wanted to stay in bed the whole day and sleep and not do nothing. So I needed to get my body to start producing dopamine because I'm an achiever and I understood the difference between not having dopamine and having dopamine. So I set small goals, and my goal was put my feet on the floor, stand up, walk to my closet, take out clean clothes, go for a shower, shave, comb my hair. Very small. So there's a secret to dopamine. You don't want the big goals, you want the small ones. You don't want the final achievement. So, for example, if you decide your goal in life is to get an MBA, don't make the MBA your goal, make all the steps towards it your goal. Because as you achieve those steps, your brain dopamine produces. There's the acknowledgement of the step, the satisfaction of it. Then there's a belief system in the deep subconscious that you are capable, that you can do more and more. So your brain gets addicted to the dopamine spike, but now it's remember it's the wanting to achieve. It's that chemical in your body that makes you do things. So if you break that goal up in a whole lot of small ones, then you're achieving, you're getting dopamine kick, dopamine. You become your own source of internal motivation through producing a sequence of small dopamine kicks. The problem with taking a large goal and only focusing on the outcome of the goal is sometimes we don't actually achieve those large goals. For example, a lot of people start a business because they want to be rich. But 3 years down the line, they're not rich. They're working twice as hard as they used to. They got half the money in the bank and they are exhausted and there's no richness. Because that was the goal, they now experience what's called disappointment. Disappointment is the second largest dopamine killer. Fake dopamine is the largest dopamine killer. Disappointment is the second largest dopamine killer. If we experience large or big disappointments in life, our bodies produce less dopamine. So, whatever goals you have, break them down into very small, achievable chunk sizes that you can take one step on a regular basis, literally daily, do something or two or three, four, 5 times in a day. Small, achievable little sequences of goals. Ting. So there's the desire to achieve this one goal. You know it's part of the journey. Once you've achieved it, celebrate somehow. Give yourself a fist bump. Go, hee ha, I've done this. Celebrating somehow to give your subconscious the recognition. So now the dopamine drive increases and you become your own internal motivator on steroids. That's the secret behind using dopamine to achieve a better life. Our human brains are beautifully intricate and absolutely magnificent. What it literally does when we go through a process where we've got small goals, and we act on them and achieve them, act on them and achieve them. The brain creates the simplest way I can explain this is almost like a trail of breadcrumbs. So it becomes a very logical, easy to follow path for the subconscious mind. So the moment you do something, that's a breadcrumb. You take the second goal, second breadcrumb, and very quickly you've got this trail of breadcrumbs, the mechanism of how to achieve the dopamine producing process becomes like a little breadcrumb route that your brain can follow quite easily. So the more you actually get your brain to produce dopamine, the more you break down your goals into small achievable steps, the more you keep doing that and achieving that, the higher the possibility that your brain very easily is going to be able to follow that path again and again and again. And the more you follow that path, the easier it becomes. So the dopamine production becomes a beautiful cycle of achievement in your life. So with this breadcrumb concept, literally you can do is you can teach your own brain to become the achiever you're looking for. A lot of people are always telling me, they need motivation, they need motivation. And I keep trying to explain to people, motivation is not something that really works on a sustainable basis if it constantly needs to come from the outside. If you need to constantly go watch a motivational video or listen to a motivational speaker, then you become reliant on an external source of motivation. Dopamine is your built-in natural warehouse of internally sourced motivation. And you can build that up. The more you generate dopamine, the more you want to achieve, the more goals you want. The more you achieve, the more goals you have, the higher your production of dopamine. So it's a beautiful cycle. If you look at the top achievers in the world, they have very, very high dopamine production. But if you go look at their strategies, they always have multiple goals in their lives, and those goals are broken down into very small, achievable steps. I mean, if you want to write a book, well, go write one sentence, and tomorrow write another sentence. Break it down. How small can you break down that goal to make sure you can consistently do something to it? So the next secret in really getting a high level of dopamine production. Remember I spoke about if you do it regularly, your brain creates a trail of breadcrumbs. So what's the one secret about that trail of breadcrumbs to make it much easier for yourself to follow that trail and to become a dopamine creator? Consistency, consistency, consistency. Our brain loves patterns and repetition. The more we do certain things habitually, the more we will start to do it. If you want to be an habitual, self-motivating king or queen, build your line of dopamine breadcrumbs in your deep subconscious mind. Go take all your goals and ask yourself a very basic question. How can I break these down into smaller and smaller steps? There's no definition of too small. If one of the steps is stand up, then that's a step. That's the achievement, but there has to be, this is the key, there has to be some form of recognition or a little bit of a celebration. Yes, I've stood up. That's the solidifying of, that's the tick box inside the brain. That's where that breadcrumb now becomes a permanent marker on your path. And now I want to just take another quick twist where a lot of people make a mistake. A lot of people believe that they must visualize the outcomes. Positive affirmations, visualize your outcomes. So let me just give you a quick secret. Visualizing your outcomes, your dreams, your goals that you're looking for is not going to bring you closer. I know. A lot of you guys are saying yes, but the molecules fly through the air and magically start bringing everything together, and it attracts everything to you. No, show me one person to and prove to me that that has happened. But I will tell you what does work. Don't visualize the end result. Visualize the steps. Visualize the labor, the effort, the tasks, the actual doing of the work towards your goal. That is the magic of achieving. Because as I visualize the task, something in me says, I can actually do this, I can achieve it. So the example I usually use is if someone says they're standing in a field of weeds, it doesn't help you close your eyes and you can go, I'm standing in a field of flowers, I'm standing in a field of flowers. When you open your eyes, you're going to realize nothing has changed. Your level of disappointment is going to be very high, and that's going to kill your natural dopamine production. What do we visualize? We visualize me going to fetch a fork, me turning the soil, weeding out the weeds, planting good seed, watering the soil, putting in food, nurturing it, fertilizer, whatever, keeping the birds away, cultivating it until there's a beautiful flower bed or a beautiful crop. The process of the labor creates an excitement in me, and that's what starts to create the dopamine. Now that I can visualize the steps, and they're all small steps and they're easily achievable, my body will start creating the dopamine, which is my internal motivator, and that's what's going to get me to get up and go fetch that fork and start turning the soil. That's the secret. Never visualize the end result. Visualize the journey towards it. Visualize the breadcrumb path towards where you are going. Teach your brain that process. Do that for a while and notice how success starts to fall out of the sky and manifest around you. It's amazing how it actually does work. Let's summarize. Dopamine is not about the pursuit of pleasure. Dopamine is the pursuit of the labor. It is the effort we put in where we now get recognition for completion of the effort that stimulates the dopamine production. It's the pursuit of outcomes, not the end of the outcome. There's a huge difference. We don't have to wait for motivation to hit us out of the sky like a lightning bolt, and all of a sudden now we're motivated and we get going. We can, through breaking down our goals into small steps, focusing on the actual action, focusing on the effort of achieving them, going through it, recognizing the effort, not the outcome. So if it's about getting a degree, it's I sat down and studied hard for an hour, not I've got the knowledge in my brain. It's the effort that we want to focus on. It's the usage of energy we want to focus on. If we break down our goals and we focus on the effort, we recognize that we've done it, we are creating a dopamine internal factory that doesn't run out. So break down those goals, focus on the effort you're putting in, celebrate the fact that you've done it, create those breadcrumbs, keep doing it, repeat, repeat. The brain loves the repetition and become the version of you know you can be. I'll see you next time, Limitless, right here, right at this time. Have a beautiful